We've covered attraction and dating in the last 2 sessions. Now we move on to courtship. Courtship is a term most of us are not really familiar with. In today's culture, we slide from a few dates to dating and then to seriously dating. But this is where I believe we need to make some critical changes in our dating habits if we're going to have better marriages. Let me tell you a quick story about courtship and why it's so important. If you were to go out on a cold, wintry day and stick your tongue on a flagpole, you're not going to get away from that situation without leaving a little part of you on the flagpole. Well, you know, that's pretty much what courtship is. You're either going to end your relationship in marriage, or you're going to leave a little part of you in that relationship. I've worked with singles for years. Singles oftentimes go through several very serious courtships. Those relationships are very emotionally draining. And if that couple has not cared for the little foxes in their relationship, they have even more scars and pain to deal with when they fail. This session is not to scare you from courting, but to prepare you to only court someone who has very good potential for marriage. You will see in this section how courtship should be done. There should be a definite time and place where that transition from dating to courtship occurs. There are 7 important aspects to courtship. Let's cover the first 4 together now.
Let's take a look at the art of courtship. You know, this couple doesn't have their wedding until chapter 3. The honeymoon is not until chapter 4. But we're definitely in chapter 2, verse 8 and following, going to see a movement in their relationship. Now, this is what is called the deepening aspect of courtship, even though I'm sure that in Israel they didn't have a term as such. Let me just give you, as we begin this section, if you'd like to take a note or two, let me show you the ideal way that it's meant to work. That the number one thing that should begin is the evaluation of the individual, of his own or her own stability. And if they consider themselves spiritually, emotionally, socially mature, then you can have the phenomena of dating, that they start seeing the same person repetitively. Dating, after about 4 to 6 times, if you have a college-age girl or a single girl, and a man has asked her out 4 to 6 times, that man needs to have what is called a defining of the relationship. He owes that girl a statement as to whether they're just buddies or whether she really is the type woman he wants to spend his life with, but he needs to tell her how he feels. Now that is called a defining of the relationship. And then they go on for another 4, usually to 6 months of just continued exclusive dating of each other. And then the next thing that happens is what is called, when they realize during this continual dating that there's an easiness to it, and a premarital relationship should be easy. It shouldn't be something you're fighting and breaking up and getting back together with and trying just to limp to the altar. There should be an easiness to that relationship. And if that happens, now you begin what is called courtship. That a man goes to a father and he says, "Sir, your daughter is the type of woman I want to spend my life with. Would you allow me to see her repetitively?" And fellas, if you want to impress a father, let me tell you how to do it. You say to that man, "I would like to see your daughter continuously, and sir, I'm looking seriously at marrying her." And once he asks you about your spiritual relationship, about your social relationship, and if you're a man, we're going to talk money. Can 2 live together as cheaply as one? If one goes hungry and the other goes naked, yes, you can. But you better have some dough, all right? And so that man, that father says, "Yes, you may see her." I had one fellow tell me that the father of the bride said to him, "I am so honored, son, that you would ask me for permission to court my daughter." The answer is no. He said, she's not quite ready, and son, I know you think you're ready, but you're not. And I'm going to show you these areas. Now, if you would be willing, I'll spend time with you and I'll mentor you. He said yes. And one day he said he and the father were riding in a pickup, right in the cab of the pickup, and that father turned to him and said, incidentally, you can marry my daughter whenever you want. He had earned the right to that girl's heart. And fellas, if you want to impress that father, you say this. And I want you to know, sir, that if you let me court your daughter, you have my word that my hands will not touch your daughter in an improper way. That my hands will touch her for the first time sexually on her honeymoon night. That father will look at you with tears in his eyes and he'll say, son, my wife and I prayed about you for a long time. Now that's the ideal, see. And then fifthly, after courtship, generally courtship goes about 4 months. After 4 months, and what happens during courtship is you need to find another couple to spend time with you and to take a hard look at your relationship, okay? And if you can go through that for about 4 to 6 months, then you have the engagement. Once the engagement occurs, you need now to start serious premarital relationship, and you need to talk about conflict resolution, about finances, about kids, about in-laws, about sex. You need to talk serious issues. And then when should you get married? As quickly as you can. If you said we need to have time to think about it, that's what you did the previous 11 months. See, once you make a commitment to get married, you need to get married. Okay? As quick as you can get your stuff together. Now, all of that together takes place in about a year's time. A mature man and a mature woman can do a relationship right over about a year's time. Now, let's watch this couple. This woman in verse 7 is called the hind of the field. This man in verse 8 is called the young stag. Does that sound arousing to you? It's meant to be, because that's the way young people are. In verse 8, listen, my beloved, he is coming. Fellas, this is the way you feel when you come to court a woman. Climbing on the mountains, leaping on the hills. You're in a dead run. You are full of desire, and you want this girl. In verse 9, let me explain this, guys, because this can get you arrested. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Behold, he's standing behind our wall, looking through the windows, peering through the lattice. There is a place for symbolism. The idea is that this man can't get close enough, fast enough, and simply to behold this woman in his eyesight is intoxicating to him. So this couple is excited. Well, I'm going to give you 7 things. The first one is desire should grow. This couple is not getting married by faith. They truly desire each other. The stag and the hind of the field. In verse 10 through 13, put this down. It should be delightful. It should be a delight. This is not a couple fighting and making up. I rarely see marriages do well that are continually breaking up and patching them back together. This man says in verse 10, arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come along. Now you tell me in 11 through 13, what time of the year is it? The winter is past, rain is over, flowers have appeared, pruning the vines, voice of the turtle dove, fig tree, vines. What time of the year is it? Spring. It is life. This is not a couple covered up in guilt. This is a couple that is alive to each other. There is blessedness to it. Man, there are sometimes, they kiddingly call our church Denton Bridal Church because we have so many singles that get married. And I see these young men that are committed to Christ, submitted to His Lordship, and they have tender hands and gentle voices with these beautiful, respectful, godly young girls. And boy, when you marry them off and send them into the next generation, you feel like, man, I have accomplished something for God. But there's other times, you ever gone to a wedding where you said to your wife, keep the receipt on that gift, all right? Because that is the blessing of the Titanic right there. You know this guy has no concept of leadership. This girl is manipulative and angry, and it hasn't got a prayer. Well, this couple comes alive in courtship. And in verse 14, there is a deepening and a trust. He says, "O my dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the secret place of the steep pathway." The woman is pictured as in a rock, up in the dark, in a secret place where you can't get to her. You know why I think that is true? Because throughout history, where you don't have the Word of God to give you a plumb line on what a man and a woman is, that a man is in the image of God and the woman is from His side to be cared for. The man was made first, thus he is to be respected. He is to lead. The woman is part of his life, and he honors her as a fellow heir in the grace of life. As a weaker vessel, she is china, she is porcelain, she is crystal, and you're tender with her. Whenever you don't have that, it comes down now to the law of the fittest. And the big guy eats the little guy. And throughout history, women have been polygamized, they have been beaten, they've been raped, date raped, bought, sold, murdered. This man says to her, "Come on out of the clefts of the rock. Your voice is sweet, and your form is lovely." It means, dear, I'm not going to hurt you. You can take my name. I'm not going to do you wrong. I said to a guy one time, he had abandoned his wife. Now, she didn't have her degree. She didn't feel she needed it because she had become one with this guy who was going places. You know where this story's going? And now they had 3 kids. And now he dropped her for a younger model, younger make. And now she's making about $20K a year trying to pay her insurance. She didn't have her degree. She didn't need one. You know what? She trusted this guy. And I said to him, your wife is guilty of one thing. She trusted a man who gave her his word, and it was no good. This guy says, come on out. Trust me. Trust me. In verse 15, there's not merely a deepening of trust, but there is a resolve to protect each other. Verse 15 is a plural pronoun, us. The couple makes a common commitment to protect that verse 10 through 13 vineyard that's coming up. If you've ever had a grape vineyard, the way that it happens is that the flower comes out and gets pollinated. The flower drops off and a bud forms, and the bud grows into a grape. If you let a little critter get into your vineyard, like a deer, like in this case rabbits, or in this case foxes, what they do, especially in the Middle East, they'll eat that little bud because it has water in it. And it's their means of water and moisture. And if you let a critter in that vineyard, the vineyard will never come to fruition. It gets retarded. It gets cut off early. This couple makes a common commitment to their vineyard. Nothing is going to mar this. Isn't that good? Nothing is going to cause this not to come up. One scholar feels that the foxes very specifically are talking about premarital sex. that is what can hold back a relationship. Well, this couple has resolved. We're going to protect ourselves. Guys, when you start courting a girl, you go to your best buddy and you say to him, I want you to hold me accountable. If my hands ever touch this girl, all right, you can ask me at any time if my hands have touched this girl. And you say to her, I've made myself accountable. And the reason I am is because I don't trust myself. You're too exciting. You're too beautiful. And I don't trust myself. This couple makes a commitment. Make no provision for the flesh in regard to its lust. If your head is made of butter, don't sit near the fire. That's in like Zechariah. That's Habakkuk. That's where I knew that was somewhere. I'm serious. Alcoholics don't eat out in bars. And normative human beings can't get too near the edge because sex is too powerful and it's too much fun. It has to be spent in the context. See? Well, verse 16, there is also growth. She says, I am secure. My beloved is mine and I'm his. Ladies, would you feel secure with a guy like this? Come out, little dove. You're beautiful and your voice is sweet and you have my word. I'm not going to harm you. Catch the little foxes that are ruining the vineyards. Let's don't let anything harm this. Can you trust a man like that? She says, I'm his and he's mine. In verse 16, her respect grows. He pastures among the lilies. I had a woman tell me one time, she said, whoever wrote this book knew the heart of a woman. I said, well, God made them. That's why he knows it. That's how a woman wants to be loved, by a shepherd king who is tender. He pastures his flock. He makes them lie down in green pastures beside still waters. He takes care of me.
If you are a believer and follower of Christ, I think the following is the right way to find God's mate for you. Picture your life with Christ as a race. This theme is used often in the New Testament. We should all be running the same race, whether we are married or single, with the goal of glorifying God and fulfilling the Great Commission. If you are single, your race should not be focused on the prize of finding a mate, just as married folks should not focus on the prize of a successful career or gaining things or raising kids. These can all be great byproducts of a well-run race, but they are not the prize. So if you are single, as you run this race, look to your left or to your right and see who's running next to you. Don't look behind. If you see someone next to you, say, how about we run a few laps together? That is dating and courtship. If that process goes well, then you say, how about we run this race together forever? You never leave the track. You simply have a mate now to run the race with. As you listen to this session, I hope you will keep the race analogy in mind. This process of courtship is important. It should determine whether you marry or not. If you are single or dating seriously, this could be the pivotal point of the study for you. The decisions you make regarding courtship will either send you onto the path of a successful marriage, cause you to stop a wrong relationship that is leading to marriage, or if not done right, set your life on a course for some painful days ahead. It is a bittersweet concept. For some of you who are dating or courting right now, this series may bring an end to your relationship. That may seem harsh, but some pain in the short run is always better than ignoring key problems and wishing they would go away. Keep in mind that you will never find the perfect mate, nor will you ever be perfect, but you can find and can be that right kind of someone. Settling for second best is not what God has designed. The goal of these first sessions is to show you how to become that right kind of person and how to look for them as well. If we do those two things, the rest will take care of itself. I know these are sobering thoughts, but an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So as we end this session, I challenge you to thoughtfully consider what we've just discussed. I don't think you'll regret it, and I'll see you next time.